guys, what's up? This is Mark, and this is gonna be your second, I'd say, year two review about what it's like to be a patient over at PRA Health Sciences in Salt Lake City. So, if you are thinking about going into a study or you're about to be admitted to a study, this is something that will be helpful. The difference between point A to point B. I did post a previous video about what it's like to be there on my first year. And I did tell myself I'll never be back, but here we go. We're back at it again. So, the difference between from what it's like from pre and post-COVID, here you go. So on the screening part is before you go through the doors is on the security guard, and the security guard is usually pretty good about this, although every now and then they'll just be on their phone and forget to check your temperature. It's like, it's whatever. What they'll do is they'll have you stand behind this tape line. They have this thing that's mounted to a wall. It checks your temperature. Obviously, you gotta take your beanies or your hats or what have you during this cold winter time, so that way they can check your head temperature. And within less than 5 seconds, they'll tell you yay or nay. So as you go through, the lady at the reception area, they'll tell you to use the hand sanitizer that they have right up on the desk, and you go through the waiting room. In the waiting room area, there's not as much people that are the chairs, they're way more spaced out. There's not as much, not a whole lot of people screening at a time. Keep this in mind that if you go home in rush hour, you're gonna be there forever. But if you find yourself screening as early on as possible, and because I've read a couple of reviews that they've had on Google, and it's a bunch of people that are whining and moaning. I'm like, just basic concept. If you're going to the grocery store on New Year's Eve, it's gonna be packed. You go before then. Anyways, other than that is, again, not as much chairs, a lot more spaced out, and there's no reading content that you can have, and all you can have pretty much just your phone or whatever you want to entertain yourself with. Same thing when it comes to disclosures, wearing your mask the whole time, blood draw, blood pressure check, height, weight check, just make sure you're all good. It did take them a little bit longer than it normally did, just because I don't know what the real reasoning is, but it took them about, I'd say, 3 to 4 weeks before they got back to me, so make sure you plan ahead. Now, there are different kinds of reviews, studies. The one that I went with works for a lot of professionals where you go in, you go out, and you go in. It varies. So it's not always the exact same thing. And the first study that I did was 15 days and 14 nights straight. And that's not going to work with a lot of people that can't be away from their jobs for way too long. The one that I went to is 1 week on, 2 weeks off, 1 week on, 2 weeks off, and 1 week on. So it's 3 weeks total plus multiple follow-up visits. So I would say it's about closer to about 45 days overall in terms of being there. And day one, normally you'd go through the front door, but they'll have you go through the back area where they have a big white tent, and they have about, I think it was like 8 chairs that's spaced out way over 6 feet. As you go through and get seated, your nose will get swabbed. both nostrils. It was kind of a funny feeling because I've never been swabbed before. So, cool. Anyways, as you go through that, get swabbed, they'll bring you into the waiting room area. Waiting room area has like 8 or 10 chairs. Again, they're all spaced out. And they will be able to tell you in about 2 hours or less if you're positive or negative on COVID. And let's say I'm going to use some rough numbers. There's 27 of you in all. They'll space you out, let's say, 3 groups of 9. And they're typically about a 2-hour block in between. I was at the 9 o'clock slot. I did hear of some people that were there at 7 in the morning and some that are later. And I guess it's a way to follow all of the CDC standards of keeping everything as spaced out as possible, even though you would test out negative as you're going in the building. With that is, you get admitted, everything's the exact same thing. They will check your stuff, so make sure that you have anything that is not labeled, as far as your bathroom things, any liquids, it will get confiscated. If your lotion has even the slightest bit like the tiniest print, it says alcohol in it. I didn't know. Like mine had it. It did get taken away, but you will get it all back at the end of your in-stay study or your in-stay time. Everything is still going to be the exact same when it comes to using the common room, being able to socialize, interact, be able to do everything else. The only time when you can actually have your mask off is when you're sleeping, when you're eating, when you're in the bathroom, or if you're, again, in bed. However, if you have someone working on you, like doing a blood pressure, blood draw, it is mandatory that you have to have your masks with on your face. Other than that, is the whole thing. Maybe there is going to be some kind of a numbing effect for you, but it did for me. I would be what you would consider the biggest baby when it comes to needles, but I got used to it. I don't really understand it, but I got used to it. So on those days that you're going to have multiple blood draws, they will leave you with an IV. It's really not as painful as it seems. I just don't look at it because some of those things are pretty long. Anyway, again, positive experience. Sierra did a good job. She is the lead, I believe, for the study. The doctors are awesome. The nurses are awesome. The food is great, except for those salads, man. We're dudes. Don't feed us salads. Yeah, other than that, if you have any kind of questions or concerns, something that just doesn't seem to sit right with you, I do check on my comments and stuff like that whenever they pop up, so ask away. Again, overall, would recommend. And if you aren't really used to needles, I mean, I don't know what else to say with that. You will get used to it eventually. Just keep on breathing. Thanks for watching. We'll see ya.